The latest round of Helldivers 2 buffs should be viewed as temporary as the numbers are climbing and positive feedback from the community pours in. I do think people need to remember that something like this simply cannot last. They are going to have to make adjustments, likely rein some of the things in. We are seeing, though, that a Helldivers 2 patch or a Helldivers 2 update has been pushed out to fix the shield generator glitch that was happening. They just tweeted that out, so be sure to get the updated version of the game. Now, previously when we covered the nerfs, we talked about how the community was in revolt. They were basically saying, let the enemies take Super Earth. They were basically abandoning their posts. And also, you know, reviews were dropping as well, and the player numbers just almost immediately plummeted. Essentially what happened was last time, if you weren't aware, they pushed out an update that nerfed a bunch of the fire weapons right before Freedom's Flame hit as a war bond. So the war bond actually saw less players boot up and log in than a patch did. The patch caused a bigger surge of players. So the player feedback was obviously, you know, very heated and very strong, and so they decided that, hey, we're gonna listen, we're gonna put into this, you know, this play, this plan and play, and they push out a bunch of buffs. And I, in my latest video, basically just said the buffs are just a band-aid. They're gonna have to think about a long-term solution here, a long-term sustainable philosophy of power fantasy in the game, and if they can't do that, then I essentially see this as just another situation that's going to result in nerfs. They're just going to have to basically swing back the other way, away from these buffs, and fundamentally that's not a good place to be. You don't want the game to feel like it's just constantly swinging from fun to irritation, which is why I have continued to advocate for doing something actually internally in the game with experimental weapons. Do something so people don't have to go read pages and pages of patch notes, you know, to know, like, hey, what should I use? Make it a part of the lore. There already is something in the game that justifies this. The railgun has an unsafe mode, and you could essentially say, hey, we want to try out more things, make them a little crazy, make them a little dangerous, and then you would know that since they're experimental, they would never stay that way. They would kind of get cycled out. Now, I don't really talk about that in my latest upload, so you're going to want to check it out, because I walk through all of the reasons that these buffs are not a long-term solution. You know, I listed a bunch of reasons in the video. Be curious what you guys think about that, so always make sure and check out those uploads, so that way you can know what I think. And now it's time to hear what you think. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, chat. Make sure and smash the like button. We're going to have to put this stream on our back. I don't know what happened with that video. The last time we covered Helldivers, it was explosive, and everybody piled in. And then that video, I don't know if YouTube was acting up. I don't know if YouTube's acting up right now, but we're going to have to put this stream on our back. So smash that like button. Help us out there. Help us get those first 100 likes. The interest in Helldivers has always been pretty strong. We've been really enjoying. I really thought the last time we covered this, we had such a good time talking about the treasonous response from the community and like what it meant. And right now, you know, I checked some of the mainstay channels that cover Helldivers, and it really does seem like the community is kind of like back in the saddle and excited to play the game. Bro Sexy starts us off with our first renewal of the day, VIP. It's time to debate manage democracy, but not me. Why? Because I work and lurk. Thank you, Bro Sexy. And then Call Me TK with 26 months and a member plus says, bump it up. Guys, that takes us to 110 on the week. We are quite a bit behind on the member weekly goal, but you guys have rallied before. And DK Bager, Han shot first, and so did you. First gifted member of the day. You guys have rallied before and helped us hit the goal. We've been hitting the weekly goal for about a month straight, I believe, and that turns Friday nights into community game night. So thank you so much, everybody who's been supporting and helping that happen. That's what happened with Destiny many times, right? Like in my estimation, I think one of the challenges with a game like this is you want people to be strong and you want them to feel powerful, but you can't just leave that. You have to figure out ways to freshen things up. Seriously, no new content? Well, I don't think they're going to do new content when they make changes like this, Infinite, because that would basically be too many dials getting turned. I do think they obviously have plans to do a new enemy. There's obviously always going to be new war bonds, you know, new weapons, new stratagems. So I continue to think that this was probably the right choice. Do this and get your footing and get things to a good place and then bring new content later. Now, if you guys leave comments on the video, you may get featured in the live stream. And this guy here says, calling this a Band-Aid fix feels reductive or at least missing the point of the patch. For months, they've been cranking up the difficulty in some of the worst ways possible. Worse performance, patching bugs that benefit us like Railgun, while keeping bugs that benefited enemies, like bot shooting through walls. Nerfing the best weapons to leave only mediocre and best choices, and introducing even more ragdoll insta-kill mechanics. All this combined led to some of the most frustrated people being the most frustrated, not because the game was excessively hard, but because it was hard in the wrong ways. Difficulty does more than equal nonsense. If we're keeping with the metaphor of Band-Aid on a gaping wound, I feel these buffs are the first step in treating a gored limb. I mean, that's the whole point, though. The whole point of calling it a Band-Aid was that this is the first step and not a permanent solution. Like, you're not really engaging with the video. You're engaging with the thumbnail. Like, the entire point of the video, the reason I'm calling it a Band-Aid is because a Band-Aid's not a permanent solution to a problem like you're saying, like a gaping wound. Like, a Band-Aid is just to kind of stop the bleeding, kind of slow things down. This is not how the game can continue long term. You can't just throw buffs at a game. You can't. Corkscrew jumps in with the Member Plus, and Brody did a brand new member during the premiere, and I gave credit for that as well. That takes us to 112 on the week. I counted you, Brody. I added you to the total before I went live. Make sure you guys do that. Make sure when you pick up a brand new membership, though, that you pick Member Plus or VIP. The standard $5 membership is reserved for gifting. We have that distinction so that you actually get more content for the extra $1. That way we can kind of say, hey, you get a gifted, you get the sample, you want to pay for your own membership, you actually get more. A gamer and you left a comment, says this is why the devs should just give up. Everyone moans either way. Screw this game now. This video doesn't moan, but okay. Like, it's not a negative video. It isn't. And Brody upgrades to Member Plus. I count upgrades as a double, so that takes us to 14. Anybody who upgrades to a Member Plus or a VIP, I count that as 2. Yeah, I'm not moaning in the video. I'm not. The video is basically saying, hey, this is good. This is a good first step, but this is not a long-term solution. It's basically setting expectations. Like, if you think that they're going to be able to continue to do this, you have to have a reality check. They can't just keep buffing everything for an infinitude of time. Like, they have to reach a point where there's something more rhythmic in their philosophy. It's been a year or so since I had it. Oh, why are you a white badge though? It should maintain your badge color. That's not supposed to happen. I think once the Switch 2 comes out, Super Detective, we may cover Nintendo more. Covering Nintendo now is kind of tough. My audience is largely similar to me, and that we primarily play on, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. And some people here are way more PC, some people are Xbox, some people are PlayStation. Nintendo's just a tough sell because their games don't necessarily appeal to the it's a new account, to the broad audience here. Guys, take a quick second and smash the like button. I'm not sure if YouTube's acting up or not. The turnout on the upload and this live stream doesn't seem correct. We've been having very consistent turnouts, especially when we cover Helldivers. So if YouTube's acting up or blipping or causing you issues, I am sorry. We had that happen last week with the stream, and it really, really, messed with everything. So make sure and smash the like button. We may end up bailing to Writer's Room very quickly if YouTube can't figure this out. So keep smashing the like button. Gotta love the doomerism, so productive. Gamers just dooming about everything is ways to make things better. Who's being doomerism? I'm not sure anybody's doing that. I didn't do it in my video. I'm certainly not doing it now. I don't think anybody's being doomer about it. I think the fact of the matter is, if you want this game to last, you can't just throw buffs out. It's a good video. Expectations should be tempered. Oh, okay. As I say, I'm not being a doomer at all. I'm saying, listen, this isn't sustainable. Like, I appreciate their efforts. I really do. And I think it'll make everybody excited to come back. But they're going to have to come to the table with a philosophy, not just reactions. That's the issue that's been going on up to now. What's good, Feed? I see you in the chat. That's been the issue going on up to now. Is that they just react. It's like, oh, well, this is really popular, nerf it. Oh, this is too strong, nerf it. And now they're reacting to player feedback, which I applaud that, but it's still just a reaction. It's not a, you know, leading from the front, driving the car choice. It's, oh, everybody's angry. Let's make everything strong. Let's let everybody have some fun. I think that's a good choice. But if you don't come out in the, you know, I think they said they've got like 60 more days of this planned things, you know, that they want to put out there. If they don't come out and make it crystal clear what their plan is and how they plan to have like a long-term and sustainable philosophy of this is how we're going to handle power in Helldivers 2, we're going to be right back in the same place in a couple of weeks, because you're going to have to make adjustments. You're going to have to add new weapons, new stratagems, new enemies. How do those things fit into a game? How do those items fit into a meta when things have been buffed or things are incredibly strong? Do those things come in and fall by the wayside immediately because they're not as good as the existing meta? Do they come in and do they take over as the new meta? Like, we need to know what to expect. I think this was an issue that I always brought up with Anthem. I always said with Anthem, I said, listen, adding new content's great. You know, I was at like a roundtable event where they were taking feedback from, you know, YouTubers. And they let one guy hijack the whole thing who was like a know-it-all, and he ruined it. And no, it wasn't me. But basically, the feedback I provided later after the meeting, because I didn't feel like saying anything in the room, because they just got so hyper-focused on the content that was being added. I said after that, I said, listen, adding content's not necessarily going to change anything right now. I need to know where the game is going. What's the point? What's the roadmap? What's the trajectory? And I'm not talking about a roadmap of content. I'm talking like, what's your plans for the game? Where are we taking this game? What type of game is it going to be? This patch is a change in design philosophy. They're moving away from military sim. Do you feel like they've indicated that, Ravenous? Because I don't feel like they've indicated that. I mean, the CCO is on Twitter agreeing that the upper difficulties are going to need to be tweaked now. Beat me to it. What did I beat you to, Donnie? They buffed because Game of the Year award show is coming. I don't think that's going to change that discussion at all. Snake Eyes left a comment on the video and says, I like when weapons are comparable with each other because it gives the player choice of what they consider to be fun. Sure, but even that turns into a meta. Even that turns into a meta. That's the point, is it's like this is why I think you just embrace it. You know? This is why I think you just embrace it. You embrace the fact that there's going to be a meta instead of trying to fight against it. Oh, they're going to add new difficulties. Yeah, that doesn't seem like they're moving against being a milsim if they're adding new difficulties, if they want to try to like balance things out from that perspective. Do games actually tell players this is how we are going to treat new items, or do they typically implement the changes and then the meta and the new meta forms around those changes? Right, and here's why that won't work long term, Corey. All that's ever going to feel like is a reactionary, frustrating exercise. Oh, these things are strong, everybody uses them, everybody's having fun, and then they're not strong. They nerf them, and then everybody's going to be angry. I'm dead serious. I know I'm biased because it's my idea, but at least with my idea, you know what to expect. You know that if they're giving you experimental weapons, there is an assumed reality it won't stay that way. If you read the opening statements of the patch notes, they say how they're changing their philosophy internally. All right, I want to read that because I didn't want to get into the patch notes. There were so many videos that got deep down into the muck and the mire of the patch notes. I went more big picture and more philosophical discussion because I felt like diving down in the patch notes, great, but like so many people had done that. I didn't feel another video doing that would be worthwhile. So I'm assuming it's in this major the major updates here. All right, so we'll read this here. Let's see. Thank you for your valuable feedback. Many players have expressed feeling constrained in how they approach challenges, often relying on a limited set of tools while other options seem less effective. This has impacted our ability to play the game in a way that suits our preferences. So what's changing? For all bug divers out there, many situations were previously either resolved with your primary weapon or anti-tank weapons, which haven't always performed as expected, with the overwhelming presence of Bile Titans and Chargers, many weapon choices therefore became invalid, okay? To address this, we've reworked armor penetration, anti-tank weapons, enemy armor, or health values. Our goal is to improve the effectiveness of such weapons. This doesn't sound like a philosophy change, homie. Although they may not be as effective as specialized, okay? They're just telling me what they're changing. This does not sound like a philosophy change at all. Where do they use the phrasing that made you think that they're changing their philosophy internally? Where in this opening statement? Is it down here? We want to assure you that your feedback remains essential to us. Please share your thoughts on these updates. We're actively listening. We plan to conduct another balance pass on day 6 of our commitment to ensure we're aligning with what you need for the best possible experience and to address any concerns and adjustments required. Your insights will be invaluable. Yeah, this doesn't sound like a change in philosophy. They're doing another balance pass. They're doing another balance pass. Like, that means they're still thinking about balance. They're still thinking about needing to make adjustments, you know, in the future. I don't see anything here that gives me that feeling that, like, oh yeah, they're definitely changing philosophy here. To me, that just sounds like fluffy intro to patch notes of adjustments and buffs, and that there will be another balance pass in the future, meaning, I'm telling you, these buffs are temporary. They're not going to let you have this strength for forever. They're going to tone some of this down. They will. And that's the point. It's unavoidable. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Like, you can't do something like this in a game and not have it ripple into the next update. It's going to. AOZ says, I played it last night. I was duo clearing Super Helldive before the update. It's definitely easier, but some of the guns feel better now. I'm not saying they're going to come back and nerf everything like crazy. I'm saying it's almost unavoidable that their next balance pass, it's going to turn some of this down. It's just inevitable. So they're once again going to create a context where everybody's having fun and everybody's loving a certain item, weapon, build, or stratagem, and then they're going to have to take it away or tone it down. Not take it away, but tone it down. I don't think you can do what they did and not have that happen. Bad take. Didn't watch the video. Obviously reacting to the thumbnail. You didn't watch the video. I think anytime you comment on a video, it should put the percentage of the video that you watch next to your comment. Or at least let me see it. Ain't no way you watch the video. It's a positive video. You're just reacting to the thumbnail. You're just reacting to the thumbnail. This is a band-aid. This isn't a permanent fix. You can't just buff and then leave and set it and forget it. They're going to have to make adjustments again in the future. Just buff the enemies instead of messing with the weapons. But that just creates power creep. The fact that they're already considering doing that, it's like, if they start doing that, you're going to get lost in the weeds. Because, like, right now, if you make a bunch of changes to Super Helldive, or you make a bunch of changes to Helldive and the enemies and how strong they are, and you do that in reaction to the current meta, okay, in 60 days, the meta will be different. The player power will be different. The player builds will be different. And then you're going to have to go and say, oh, well, now we have to make changes again to the enemies because now the enemies aren't tuned to the current meta. Like, you can't tune the enemies to the current meta because the current meta won't stay. It won't. It never does. This seems so pedestrian to me. It's like, don't do that. Don't make the player strong and then, like, well, now we have to orient high difficulty and enemies around the player's strength. You're going to get lost in the weeds. In like 60 days, you're not even going to know which way's up. It's going to be like, well, we made adjustments to the enemies because 60 days ago, people were thermiting, Bile Titans, and it was really strong, so we did this. And, and people were using this weapon and this stratagem, so we did this. And it's like, what do you mean? Okay, so you're either going to have to revert those changes or do more adjustments to the enemies at that point in time. in reaction to the current strength of the player. You're just going to be constantly playing whack-a-mole of like, this is too strong, now make the enemy stronger. That's power creep. You're just creeping the power of the game to the edges of absurdity where, well, now that the players are so strong, we actually have to make the enemy stronger as well. The truth is, I would hate to be the developer that has to do balancing, but I like Lono's idea. I never ran with meta builds, and I did just fine. The balance of the game will continue to change. Yeah, I think that's unavoidable. I don't see how you can treat a game like this and not constantly have the pendulum swing, which is why your best course of action with a game like this is to accept that the pendulum will swing and hop on for the ride. Make it a part of the game. You can't let the inmates run the asylum and wonder why it falls apart, says Paul. Personally not a fan of blanket buffs. It's the sort of thing a game does at end of life. You're just buffing, you get just to buffing the enemies. It's just the same as a weapon nerf. Right, it's almost not any different, Paul, except that they're talking about only doing it at the upper difficulties, because it does seem like there's a portion of the player base in Helldivers 2 that's what they want. They want their freaking teeth kicked in. They want the difficulty to be absolutely brutal. Panda Poker says, it's the amount of hog that killed it for me. Hate not seeing the stuff, fog that I'm seeing. I think you meant fog? He said hog. What? What do you mean it's the amount of hog? This guy here, Mate, says, it's one good patch after 7 months of terrible decisions. I love this patch, but I am still skeptical. Let's see how it goes. Hope they keep going in this direction. They need a whole change, not just buffs. Again, you nerf and nerf and nerf and nerf, and then you finally do buffs. Of course everybody's excited. Of course everybody's excited, but again, that's not a long-term plan. Skyfire left a comment and said, I think buffing everything was the answer. Right now, there are tons more options because so many of the weapons were underwhelming, so buffing everything was a matter of fact the solution. Going forward, the devs obviously will continue to add content and add higher difficulty levels for those who like punishing difficulty, but your take that buffing everything isn't the solution is wrong in the case of Helldivers because everything was too weak and a lot of things were way weaker. I don't get your point of the video, but I love your channel. I said it wasn't a long-term solution, but a step in the right direction. Yeah, I wasn't saying that it wasn't a solution. It's not a long-term solution. There's a big difference. Like, there's a giant difference between the two. Like, nerfs have to happen sometimes, but the nerfs that they did back when they did them, they were absolutely not the answer. They were absolutely not the answer. The best thing to do, I think, is to always think through, okay, what's the goal, right? Whenever we're deciding and discussing what we're trying to do on the channel or what I'm trying to do with the brand or what we're trying to do with the video is, what's the goal? What is the goal? What are you trying to achieve with Helldivers? I would assume I don't even have to work for the company, and I know that the goal is a steady and healthy rhythm of players playing and returning at different intervals and spending money at different intervals. You have to have a healthy and steady amount of that happening. I don't care if you work at the company or if you work at McDonald's. I think anybody knows that that's the goal of a game like Helldivers 2. You don't have to be a genius to know. Listen, at some ground level, your goal is you want this game to get a steady return of players, engagement, and money. Because if not, pack it up and go home. Just take all the money you made from the initial sales and work on the next game. I think they do want to see that. I don't think you see a healthy and steady amount of returning players and spending money. I don't think you see that if we're always just going like, oh, well, that was really fun for a while, but then they nerfed everything again. Or, well, that build was really, really fun, but then they had to nerf it. Players disagree with the goal. Sometimes, example, how the laser cannon functions in the game. Well, see, now you're getting down into the minutia. I'm saying if you're going big picture goal is we want players to return regularly and play regularly and spend money regularly, then I don't think you can be like, you can't do what they've been doing. And the buffs they're doing now is certainly a B12 shot in the arm to say, hey, they're listening, but it's not a long-term solution. The whole point of my video and calling it a Band-Aid is just that. This is a stopgap. It's a band-aid. Stop the bleeding, reinvigorate at least a portion of the player base to know you're listening. But long term, this is not an answer because this runs out of gas really fast. This will run out of gas really, really fast. They didn't just blanket buff everything. There are also nerfs. Some enemies now do more damage to players. Well, for sure, but by and large, this is viewed as a huge win for the players that wanted buffs. Sven says, I just want to blow up bugs with my buds. I don't give an F if stuff is overpowered. Just let me log in and blow stuff up. I'm not looking for a Destiny raid level challenge when I play Helldivers. Sven, you just made my idea take on a whole new form. You didn't even mean to. You didn't even mean to. The experimental weapon idea that I have is multifaceted. So on one hand, I put forth the idea that a guy like Sven could boot up the game and be like, what are the experimental weapons right now, right? You'd run experimental weapons for probably the length of a war bond or a season, right? Yo, face with a VIP renewal, thank you. So he boots up. That puts us a 10 bomb away from the next milestone of 125. We're a little behind on pace this week. We could rally and hit the goal, but you guys are going to have to get big. It's already Wednesday. So Sven could boot up the game and be like, brand new war bond. It's fire weapons, and there's a bunch of experimental fire weapons that are now crazy strong. Let's go have a ball. They're brand new weapons. I'm excited, okay? I think the same thing could be done for those extreme-minded players. The people that want a severe challenge. The people that want like a really, really hardcore, hey, we want this to be really, really tough. You could do the exact same thing. You could say, we have experimental loadouts. And those loadouts are designed for the harder content. It's almost like modifiers. You know how when you would go into certain things in Destiny and the modifiers would make it harder, but then you could get more points. There was even a time where you had like the Nightfall card and you could like tweak it to maximize the points without making it too difficult. But then there were people that would make it like insanely difficult just for the sake of it, just for the fun of it. And then Grandmaster Nightfalls came out, and that was some of the worst content that, Destiny's ever made for, challenge from a challenge perspective. That was always my opinion. I thought it was lazy and stupid, but the point being, you could do the same thing. You could say, we want to have hardened soldiers. We want to have hardened Helldivers. And if you want to help us out here at the R&D department at the Ministry of Research and Development, well, then you can help us too. You can run these predetermined loadouts and go run the hardest difficulty and then be, handsomely rewarded. But that's how you would create the dichotomy within the game, because it's like, there are people like me. I have no interest in that. I don't want to go into Super Helldive. I don't want to die a bunch. I don't want to have a really hard time. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm like Sven. I want to drop, blow up bugs, laugh at my buddies getting blown up, laugh at things that don't go our way or that do go our way, and then call it a night. Like, that's what I want out of the game. Well, experimental weapons, the research and development department at the ministry, would then be there to give me that. And if you're the hardcore player and you're like, no, I really want a challenge, I really want something difficult, the research and development department of the ministry is right there waiting for you. They'd be like, hey, you can help us out. We want hardened soldiers. We want people to really test the limits of what a Helldiver can do, and then you would be handsomely rewarded. I think you do like cosmetics or something that were only earnable in those echelons of content. The research and development would award you stuff. They would say, hey, thank you so much for your contribution to the ongoing war. Here's your reward. And you'd have that, you'd be able to strut around and show off what you got, which again brings me back to the fact that I think the game needs transmog. But I think that idea has elasticity. It could go in either way. You could really answer the two sides of the player base, because there's the sides of the player base that are just like, dude, I don't care if it's easier. I don't care. I just want to blow stuff up. You know, I don't care if everybody's using the same weapon. The weapon's fun. You know, the nerf they did, you know, back in whenever it was, August. It was like they nerfed one of the weapons simply because everybody was using it. And it's like, that's a terrible reason to nerf something. Nerf it because it's broken or causing problems, not because it's popular. They buffed all the weapons, but your limbs break every time a bug breathes on you. Such an unfun mechanic. They have left limb health at the way that it was. Oh, that never really seemed a problem. But again, I never went beyond difficulty like 5 or 6. I just wasn't interested in it. I just had fun at. I felt like level 5 was probably like the sweet spot for I could just kind of mindlessly talk to chat and play. A comment here from Valepsa45 says, "Thank you, sir. This is not a patch they have to deliver." You are right. I agree with you. You are right. Dave Langer left a comment on the video. They should stop with the buffs and the nerfs and just start adding new levels and make those harder and harder. They also need new things to unlock, because right now for most people there's no reason to play. New content and enemies is definitely needed. I mean, that's definitely needed. You got to start to add more content, but I definitely think they wanted to wait. I don't think they wanted to do this and coincide it with other content. You know, you don't want to have too much going on at once, and then you end up either breaking things or frustrating people because of bugs and glitches. This guy says, "Can't we all just feel good for a week without being critical? We waited for months." The video praises them, but they need a long-term solution. I mean, I praise them in the video. I do. I praise them in the video. But I also say, listen, you need a long-term solution. You're going to have to sort this out. Right? You are going to have to sort this out. Okay, the upload seems to be turning around. I think YouTube was having an issue. What the frick is going on? I was like, because the last time we covered this, you guys were all here and everybody was really passionate and excited to talk about it. This guy says, right now, a ham-fisted response to a ham-fisted response is, thank God, giving us some benefit. But this is praying the lottery gives you a winning ticket instead of being confident in a developer. And that's your barrier of entry on intelligent conversation here. You, the viewers, can't just view this as A or all B. There are bigger core issues at play. Saying those who are talking negatively are just cry divers is ignorance of the situation, willful stupidity. Yeah, I think people are always quick to like dump and like, do you guys remember the video I made where I got a bunch of hate from the Helldivers community? Do you remember what I said? And then a bunch of people came back to the video and said I ended up being right. It was back in July. I said this update's not enough. And I got a lot of hate and a lot of criticism. And then a lot of people came back and said, homie was right. You know, the homie was right. Everybody jumped on him and jumped on, you know, and yelled at him and told him he was an idiot. And it was like, no, the update wasn't enough. And I'm saying the same thing now, dude. I'll be the prophet in the wilderness to yell and scream and say the thing that needs to be said. If you want to get mad at me, get mad at me. But this right now is just basically a way of saying we're listening. It's almost like proof of them listening, which I think is the right thing to do. It is. We now have tangible evidence that they're listening to the community. They're not just saying it on Twitter. They're not just saying it in their Discord. They actually are listening. Well, okay, great, cool, awesome. Now that you've established that you're listening, we're listening. I'm listening. I'm waiting. I am. I want to know what's next. I do. I want to know what's next because, okay, you're listening to us. Great. You've received our feedback. Awesome. Sweet. Okay. These buffs are nice. What's the long-term plan? Because you listen to me and now it's my turn to listen to you. That's what I say to the devs. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for finally listening to the community and just deciding that buffs are the response that you're going to use to show that you're listening to us. Great. Well, now we're listening to you. You got to tell us what the plan is. What are we doing going forward? Because in 2 months, If this is all you've done, then that's not a solution. That just means you buffed this stuff and then walked away. You can't. This game is not a rotisserie. You don't set it and forget it. You got to keep an eye on it. You got to make sure things are working right. You got to make sure that players are having a good time. You have to make sure that new content, whether it's new stratagems, new enemies, new weapons, new whatever, it's got to fold into the game in a winsome way. You need a carrot to chase. Right. We need new stuff. And I don't know how you... I don't know if they can legislate the game to the hardcore players who have everything. I really don't. I really don't. I don't know if you can legislate to that. Because, like, you're always going to have those players that gobble up the game. And they do everything and get everything, and it's like you're never going to give that person enough. They're always going to be at the front of the wave, crashing on the shore and saying, "Man, I need more." I didn't mean to make that rhyme. I don't think you can ever get away from that. I think it's unavoidable. I think it's completely unavoidable. You're always going to have people that do that, and if you try and legislate to those people. If you try and legislate to those people, I think that's a fool's errand, because you're going to end up... The best way that I've ever seen companies do this, the way they always handle this and the way they always approach, legislating to the hardcore player, is they make everything stupidly grindy and slow. They turn every exercise into a treadmill. It's like if you legislate to the Flash because he's really fast and he's going to get through the content faster than everybody, well, the only way you slow him down is by putting him on a treadmill. And then the rest of the community is going to be like, dude, why the frick did you do this? I don't think you can legislate the game to the hardcore player. Paul says, I would like to know if they're still making money or are they eating into the original sales. At the end of the day, they need to make money. I think they're probably okay, Paul, because they didn't hire. They stayed at their same operation size. Brett Williams of 16 months of membership says, the dev said there's a 60-day plan. They're only 30-ish days in. A new faction must be coming at the end of this, right? Illuminate? I think the Illuminate are coming. This guy responds to my video, how is this a Band-Aid? This is actually huge because it is a good choice, but not a long-term solution. The whole point of calling it a Band-Aid is to say it's not a long-term solution. I'm not insulting them. I'm not insulting their efforts. This guy says, I think what they did is absolutely hands down what the community needed. I think what they need to give is higher difficulty levels and so on. We need buffs. We need the buffs for them. They're very difficult. Aaron Walsh says, they need to add something else to buy for the currencies for people that are always maxed out. Temporary buffs like an extra stratagem for one mission. I think that's a great idea. I do. For the first time ever, I hit the cap. I hadn't booted up the game in so long that I hit the cap. Small brain can't understand what you mean by Band-Aid. Right, like, I'm not being insulting. I'm like, well, this is a Band-Aid, right? Well-intended. It's a caring thing for them to do. It's clear they care about their game, but it's not a long-term solution. Kratos176 leaves a comment on the upload. Anytime you guys leave comments, you might get featured in the live show. While you're listening, guys, take a quick second and smash the like button. We have definitely turned this stream around. Thank you guys so much. Let's get to 200 likes on the video. Let's hit that milestone really quickly. That can really help out. Today, YouTube was acting squirrely. Kratos says, I 100% agree. I hopped on yesterday after months, and it felt nice to have more things to play with, but the content is still the same, and it's gotten kind of bland. We should have gotten all these buffs months ago and new content by now. See, there's a thoughtful person that can see through the thumbnail and the title and not get upset and be like, you're right. It's fun. But it's still the same game. Like we need more. You got to reinvigorate the game, and we need a long-term plan. Paul says you need to build on what you already have. Have a slime planet, and you farm slime parts, and you can upgrade your guns with slime modules. Right now, you're getting into contextual power, Paul, which I've talked about before. A great way to add new content and this could go hand in hand with my experimental weapons, you'd be gathering that slime for the experimental department, and then they would give you experimental slime weapons. And they might be more effective against those enemies, right? And then, as the lore allows, you would say, oh, these enemies are becoming resistant to the slime. Our next war bond is ice-based. And now we have all these experimental ice weapons, to use on these guys. And maybe you can farm buffs by going to ice planets and harnessing the ice power, so that when you go to those planets, see, this is how you create contextual power and challenge. All right, track with me here. You basically make those enemies resistant to the slime, and now you're going to try and use ice on them, okay? Now, hardcore players are going to want to challenge, and guess what they can do? They can go up into the upper echelons of the difficult content, but what they could also do is go on missions on ice planets, harvest the ice, and then maybe that gives you some kind of a damage buff to go into the challenging content and to be a little bit stronger. Do you see? You're creating all these dynamics and all this interplay, so it's fresh and it's new and it's fun, but you're working within the confines of what you've already built. I'm not asking you to put jets and helicopters in the game and change the identity of Helldivers. I'm saying work within what you have. You can work within the confines of the game and the lore and do some really fun things. Go and gather this slime, give it to the experimental weapons department. Now you get a buff, so when you go run the really challenging content, you're a teeny bit stronger if you want. Well, a hardcore player is going to do that. It's going to give them a sense of investment, a sense of strength, and a sense of meeting the challenge on the field of battle. See, these are the types of things I think that would make the game feel more like this living, ever-moving thing, instead of, hey, we buffed a bunch of stuff, so the pendulum's over here right now. Well, the pendulum's going to swing back. It has to. The overall video has a negative outlook, however. Buffs needed to happen, but the gameplay isn't normal even on level 10. It's hard. I kept getting killed within seconds. I'm not saying that it wasn't a negative video. I'm saying it's not purely negative. It's like, hey, good job. You guys did this, but this is not an answer. This is not a long-term answer. It's a stopgap. It's a, hey, our bad. We so royally screwed up that we're buffing everything to make up for it. Right? They've said they didn't make this game for hardcore players. Well, I mean, they got them. I don't know if Destiny ever thought they'd have hardcore players, but Destiny ended up getting them, and what'd they do? They found ways to make content for them. As I said a little while ago, I don't think you legislate the game to the hardcore player. You're never going to make enough content for them. But I certainly think you can give them stuff. You can give them stuff to do. So I think it's kind of a both and. I think you're correct. Like, yeah, it's not really meant for hardcore players. You can't legislate the game to the hardcore players. The vast majority of the difficulties are not made for the hardcore players. Like, difficulties like, what, 1 through 7, 1 through 8? That's the vast majority of the game and probably where most of the player base is landing. I bet you if you looked at a heat map of difficulty, most of the player base is hanging out in 5. Maybe 6. Most. Just right there in the middle. Having a good time, blowing stuff up, feeling like there is some semblance of a challenge, but not, but not so absurd that you're not having a good time. Another comment on the video here from the gym teacher's grandma. Amazing name. Buffs are nice. When I left, you had like 2 weapons that were good. Now I can't decide what to use because so much is good. From both scenarios, the latter is what I prefer. Right. A good step, but we need a long-term plan. We need a long-term plan. Like, I will never disagree with you that this was the right step. This was the needed step that they had to take. But they 100% have got to have a long-term plan. I am extremely interested in what they trot out. I am. I'm invested. I'm interested. I played for 80 hours. I had a really good time. And right now I'm like, okay. All right. You have my attention. You do. If I wasn't playing other games right now, I'd probably be playing your game. I had to get Starfield installed last night and ready to go because I got to start grinding that for Shattered Space. I've been working on a curriculum, you know, so I've been having to read in the evenings for something that's not even related to YouTube. It's related to my personal life. And I finished Astrobot. And I'd really like to play Plucky Squire. I had a good time with that yesterday afternoon with the members. Gaming for Days says, we should be okay with the game living a full life and then dying. Everything doesn't need to be like Fortnite and live forever. The game is super fun right now, and the highest difficulty levels are for the sweats. I don't necessarily disagree with the principle of what you're saying, but I don't think there's any harm in a game like Helldivers 2 trying to go the distance. My chair can't get in the sweet spot. I'm supposed to be like in the middle. There we go. I don't think there's any harm in them trying to go the distance. They built a game that I think can. I remember back when the game first came out, I told people, I was like, look, man, this game can go the distance. They have what it takes. They have the fun factor. They have the viral factor. The lore is on their side. I think they can do it. I think they can go the distance. And I think with a handful of adjustments, with just a handful of adjustments, I think they could really make the game rhythmically fun. A live service game needs to strive to go the distance. That's the whole point. Right, like having Helldivers hit the heights that it hit with player base and then just be like, yeah, it's okay to walk away. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's a terrible idea. This guy says two things can be true at the same time. It is a Band-Aid. It's a much needed Band-Aid. Agreed. No, I agree with you. I don't think I argue that it's bad in the video, right? I don't think it's bad. I think it's great, but I also think it's just to get it's to get things started, basically. I know it's off topic, but that's a pretty large leap. Huh. It jumped to #1 global? Interesting. It looked like it wasn't doing that well, Weez. Separate game, separate discussion. It's a Band-Aid on a self-inflicted wound. I mean, that's fair too, Boris. The comments on your upload makes it apparent that people don't know what constructive criticism is. Right, Brody? My honest opinion is that they took steps back with all the nerfs. The patch gets them back to the starting line where they can now introduce true new things. That's actually well stated, Godzilla. Ravenous Gojira. That's well stated. To be like, listen, you guys took a lot of steps backwards. Okay, you just kind of got back to the line. All right, now what are you going to do? That's what I'm saying in the video. It's like, okay, good job, but what are you going to do? You can't just take these back in the next patch because you're just going to make everybody angry again. And you certainly can't just leave the game as it is. What do new weapons, stratagems, and enemies bring to the table? What about the upper levels of difficulty? What about the metas that emerge from this? There will be metas that emerge from this. Yeah, I think people are seeing the thumbnail and getting angry because they just assume I'm being negative. Mile High says, so everything is powerful and enemies are not buffed yet. So what you're saying is, if I want to play again, now's the time. Sadly, I don't think it's pulling me back. New content may do that. I think new content could pull you back, you know. Maticus says, for me, it's always been about playing with friends, which makes all the social menu issues especially egregious. You know, I agree with you. Here's somebody here, played a lot. Johnny Boy. 478 Johnny Boy, if you're in chat, I'm reading your comment. Guys, thanks for the nice turnout. YouTube seems to have gotten its act together. Good to see you here. If you've never been here before, hit subscribe. That's free, and it lets you talk in my chat. I want to hear from you on this topic. Take a quick second and smash the like button. Maybe give some members or become a member. If you decide to become a member on this channel, make sure and pick Member Plus or VIP. The $5 tier is for gifting. Johnny Boy says, as someone who has stuck with the game since launch, People are really happy now, 53,000+ players just on bugs alone. People are happy, but once they start to tweak enemy difficulty to balance things out, people will go right back to complaining. The Impaler, in my opinion, a broken enemy pre-patch. Now, after the update, I was able to kill one with a one-spear rocket. There is no way they let this stand for what is supposed to be harder enemies. I feel like by winter, people will be back to disliking the game. Exactly the point of my video. They need a long-term plan. That right there is somebody who gets it. That guy gets it. It's like, listen, I've been here since the beginning. There's no way it can stay this way. He gets it. He's like, you're going to end up having to tone some of this down or make the enemy stronger, then everybody's going to be angry again. This guy says, are you ignorant or contrarian? It's not a Band-Aid. They just slapped it on and said, yep, that's it, time to retire. They've hinted at mountains of content. Cyberstand, Campaign, Mystery of Gloom, Illuminate, that will retain players for a long time. Sweet Liberty, you people are so up your own butt, you can't appreciate anything. Yeah, I'm not going to approve that because it's not constructive. You're just insulting. Try again without being so nasty. It started out okay. It's like, I don't care if you want to ask if I'm contrarian or just ignorant. Those, you know, that's low level enough. You just start swearing at me like, come on, dude. Be respectful. Do we need a roadmap? I don't need a content roadmap. I need a trajectory heading. What's the bearing? Where are we going? How are you going to keep the game fresh? You don't need to tell me exactly what you're doing in 3 months down to every jot and tittle, but you can say, this is our philosophy for the power in the game. This is how we're going to handle power in the game. Because the player needs to be confident that a buff isn't just a temporary, like, vacation that you're going to yank back. Hey, you having fun with that? Do you remember the banking commercial where the kid was playing with the truck and the guy in the suit's like, yeah, you like that? Really play with that truck. And then he takes the truck away from the kid and gives him a cardboard truck instead. And the kid's like, what? He's like, yeah, you didn't read the fine print on the bottom of the truck. They were making a joke about like banks that have fine print, whatever. You can't treat every weapon buff like that. Yeah, really play with that truck and then just take it away after a while. The player needs to have the confidence to know that when you buff something, it's either done with the expectation of like, yeah, it's not going to stay this way for forever, which is why I think my idea sets a proper expectation. Experimental weapons, you know, there's a timer on that. It would almost be like a battle pass. They would say, this run of experimental weapons expires in 61 days or whatever. And the beauty of that is, you know that when that time expires, there's going to be a new batch of experimental weapons. That right there, do you see? It's like, I'm not telling you what you're going to get in 3 months. I'm setting up a system and a philosophy that properly informs the player. This is how you're going to be handling buffs and strength and power in the game. The fact that they're going to be doing another balance pass and the fact that they're talking still in the language of fine-tuning, I'm like, that's a fool's errand. I don't know why you would try to balance or fine-tune this game. You have to think upside down about this. You're thinking in the realm of other games. You're not other games. You're Helldivers 2. You can quite literally chart your own course in the realm of weapon buffs and nerfs. You don't have to do what everybody else does. As Odo said, this is a horde shooter. How much longevity are you asking for? The content is good. I've gotten 200 plus hours. Level 126 has been good, but they've been fixing Alex's mistakes. That meta. Exactly. I keep coming back to this. The pendulum will swing no matter what. Embrace it. Just embrace it and say, we're fighting a losing battle. If the pendulum's going to swing, why don't you be the ones to swing it and then let the players know, yeah, this is how we're going to do this. There's still going to be buffs and nerfs, even if my idea were to get implemented like today. There would still be buffs and nerfs, and that's fine. They would still have to tweak certain enemies. You know, If certain enemies were just dying way too fast or not fast enough, that's totally fine. But I think it would take you out of this dilemma of like whack-a-mole of, well, this is too strong. Oh, these enemies are too weak. Oh, you know, I don't think that is I don't think that would work. It's proof it's not working right now. We're just this is what I'm trying to tell people. It's only working right now because of how bad it was. It's not working right now because, like, oh yeah, this is how the game should be run. 100,000 people in the game yesterday seemed to disagree. Did you watch the video? I literally mentioned this in the first 2 minutes. Like, it's like you don't even, I'm telling you, you shouldn't be able to leave comments on videos you haven't watched. In the opening statement, I say it's receiving positive feedback. The player numbers are going up, but this is not a long-term solution. The community never asked for weak enemies. I don't need to one-shot things. I just wanted weapons to be viable and kill efficiently. I remember when they talked in the one, I forget what patch note it was, I forget what time it was, but I remember when they said something to the degree of like, it was basically commentary on your primary weapon, and I remember thinking like, I read it and thought, that's a terrible philosophy and outlook on a primary weapon. It was like the idea that like, yeah, a primary weapon shouldn't be your primary means of killing things. And I was like, what? Like, what'd you say? This is your fault, Lono. We don't do nuance on the internet. It's either all good or all bad. If you think the buffs make the game easier, then you haven't played the higher difficulties. Gaming with the buffs make the highest difficulty enjoyable versus feeling like a pain. Gaming for days, I am convinced there are Helldivers who are masochists. I don't say that as an insult. I don't. I think they're masochists. I think they absolutely want the game to bludgeon them. I think they want it to bludgeon them. And if it's not bludgeoning them, then it's not difficult. Like, you're going in and having fun because you're probably more like me. Like, you want to be able to tackle the challenge, feel equipped to tackle the challenge, and not feel like the content's been overtuned. I swear to you, there are people that's just what they want. They want a game to like basically abuse them. Like, that's what they want. They want to feel like they're just getting smacked around. Like a rag doll. It's like I don't play games for that. I don't. And so immediately you saw on Twitter, I put it in my video. You saw on Twitter, there were immediately people saying it's not hard enough now at the upper difficulty, and the CCO was agreeing with them. He's like, yeah, we'll have to make adjustments. I don't understand why the pendulum has to swing back. This is a horde shooter. The challenge isn't how long it takes to kill a single enemy. The challenge is being overrun by dozens of enemies. I think it's more nuanced than that, though, Drake, because number one, it's not just purely a horde shooter. You have objectives and things you're trying to do, and you also have lots of different enemies, right? And so you have to have a means of taking care of chargers, bile titans, and the like. The second thing I'm going to say in response to what you're saying is that they have to add new enemy types. They have to add new, minors, majors, mini bosses. Like, that's kind of a typical structure in a game like this. You got the little guys, medium guys, and the big guys. And they have to add those. They also have to add new weapons. Okay? There's never a future in a game like this where you're not kind of disrupting things and swinging things kind of back and forth to either shake things up, keep it fresh, or again, adding new content and adding new things. And they might add something new and they're like, oh, good golly, these weapons are way too strong. They're shredding these enemies. So then they either have to make the enemy stronger or they have to nerf the weapon. You also have to think about the same goes for any new weapons that they add. The new weapons that get added either have to be on par with everything that they have, which is kind of boring. You almost want the new weapons to be the new shiny fun thing that everybody's using. I think that's fair. Everybody's kind of bored of what they've been using, and the new shiny thing being really strong and being exciting, I think, is a winning combination. It makes the game have a new car smell all over again. So I don't think you can just be like, oh, just let the pendulum over there. You don't have to swing it. Just leave everything as you've made it. I don't think that that's possible for a game like this. If you can kill faster, you get run over less. Right. If you're just killing everything super, super fast, I enjoy that. But again, there are people that want a more balanced approach to how the game feels and doesn't just feel like you're just mowing everything down. Dubear says, y'all are missing Lono's point. He's saying the devs just gave you 3 funnel cakes for dinner. It's awesome right now, but you're going to feel it later. Nobody is saying funnel cakes aren't awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. Yes. If you went all that time without a dessert and then you finally got some dessert, you'd be pretty excited, but you can't live off that. There's got to be give and take. There has to be balance. I'm not saying fine-tune balance. I'm saying this is not the be-all, end-all. I'll say it another way. This is not what the game's going to look like in a year. In September of 2025, do you think the game will look like this? I don't think so. Digital Foundry says, this is the most interesting plausible Switch 2 leak image. It looks like some rough prototype components. Why fake a main board? Pay attention to the small size of the battery chamber and keep expectations firmly in check on handheld performance. Mile High says, I would like to see some variety in the locations too. It'd be sick to play in a destroyed cities, small towns, or even base outpost variations. I remember when we had to do the new mission type where we were defending the injectors or whatever it was called. I remember really liking that because it felt like a new piece of content because it felt like its own contained location. Hotfix just hit. Yeah, they were addressing the issue with the shield. There was some kind of a bug with the shield. What was it? The shield generator that was having an issue. I like how y'all haven't even seen the Illuminate yet. This guy says here, lemon wedges. And the 1%ers already complain the game is too easy, but also complain that the player place is dying down. Yeah, I don't get the idea that the game is too easy. I don't get that at all. I've seen the footage. Like, I've seen the footage. I'm like, what's going on? This looks really hard. Oh wow, a lot of comments here. Let's try to find a short one to read. No, don't put experimental and super strong weapons in live builds because people will be pissed when it's taken away, nerfed. They have to test the server for this. The experimental weapons would always be replaced with new ones, though. It would be part of the game's lore. It would be part of the game's lore. I'm not talking about like a private testing environment or something. Right? I don't think that's what I'm trying to convey. I'm saying put it in the game, make it a part of the lore. There's already something in the game like that. You have the unsafe mode on the railgun. This guy says, take your blank and move on. The game is fun. Stupid YouTubers come in and try and kill our fun. I'm not trying to kill your fun. This is probably the weirdest thing that I've experienced as a YouTuber. Why come to a website that is based on consuming video content and you don't consume the video content? You just rage at the thumbnail. Like, what? Just go to Twitter and rage at thumbnails on Twitter then. You don't have to watch the video. I don't get it. Like, when I see a thumbnail like the one that we went with, I want to know why the person thinks that. I literally want to know why. Like, this guy's saying the buffs are just a Band-Aid. I'd be like, well, why is he saying that? And I would go and listen. And I'd be like, oh, well, he says it's good they did this, but it's not a long-term solution. Oh, okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like when a thumbnail like that, like the one that we went with, it creates curiosity in my mind. It's like, oh, well, I would like to know why this person thinks this. Even if somebody put up a video and said the buffs are a mistake, I would want to know why. I would be like, how dare you say that? We're finally having fun. Really? You're in the comment sections of a YouTube video. Are you playing the game right now? Or are you on the defense force? Get out of here. I'll call the Brute Squad. You know, I'm on the Brute Squad. You out of Brute Squad. It's like, call the defense force. Someone isn't absolutely praising everything that the game has ever done. This guy says Merp time. He says, playing Helldivers 2 isn't an esport. I hop on to shoot bugs when I'm bored and try to complete the mission they give us. When it got to the point where I was too busy running and not able to even attempt to do the mission, they definitely messed up the game and I turned away. They're just making good on trying to make the game fun again. This isn't an esport. They wanted to make it a challenge, make new difficulty levels, and add new bugs if you want to do that. Not make the game so hard. About 10% of the player base are elitists who can mow down everything with no problems after buffs and nerfs, but then what about the 90% that aren't having fun? Yeah, I think those are good thoughts. I think this is why I said in my video, if you're going to err on the side of caution, it's really, really better to err on the side of giving the player power. 100%. 100% agree with the direction that they went. If you're going to err on the side of caution, you err on the side of the vast majority of this player base just wants to have fun. Like, you've got this really vocal small group that's like, kick my teeth in, daddy. I want it to be really, really difficult. And it's like, that's great that those people are there. You got to love people that are that committed and, you know, that I would say almost a teeny bit crazy. Like, they're not fully crazy, but they're a teeny bit crazy. Like, I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, but dadgum, like, what the frick? Why do you want everything to be so stinking hard? You know, it's like, how do you enjoy really any game? So few games, you know, are like that. You know, it must make it really hard to find games to enjoy. There's such a small amount of games that are truly that difficult. But I do think if you're going to err on the side of caution, you absolutely do not want to err on the side of making things more difficult. You're going to want to err on the side of making things more fun. Always. And that's why this is a Band-Aid. It's like, hey, you made the game more fun. Good job. Now I want to know what the plan is. I want to know what the plan is. YouTube's supposed to be making a bunch of announcements today. We have new ways for creators to build business, introducing gifts powered by Jules, YouTube Shopping Affiliate. We're also introducing more AI tools, 6-second video clips for YouTube Shorts. What? Video title and thumbnail ideas. To summarize, read this article. They're just summarizing what they did this year. I saw somebody say that the CEO of YouTube was going to make a bunch of announcements today, so I'm hoping they announce some good stuff. So I think it's great they did a bunch of cool things this year. YouTube has announced a new feature called Hype. The community can upvote videos to be discovered. Videos need to be from channels of under 500,000 subs. How in the world will you do that? How do you hype something? You just say you want it to be... Well, I don't understand. Isn't that what thumbs up does? We dove headfirst into user-focused design journey. We talked to creators and viewers and tested out different ideas and kept refining until something really clicked. Imagine viewers being able to directly contribute to hyping your video within the first 24 hours, almost like crowdfunding the hype. Or picture this, you're scrubbing through a video and suddenly you see your name pop up sponsoring a specific segment. We've even played around with letting viewers cheer their own comments. Wait, are people going to pay money to do this? Hyping a video. Anybody can hype to 3 times per week. Oh, it doesn't look like it costs anything. It looks like you can... We created hype. It doesn't sound like it costs anything, but it might. That would be terrible if it costs money. Hyping is all about emerging YouTube channels grow by connecting them with new audiences. When viewers hype your videos, it'll earn points to help make you onto a weekly leaderboard for the country, potentially putting you in front of a whole new audience. Okay. So it sounds like you can hype 3 videos a week as a user. It does not cost. Yeah, I saw points and got worried. You're helping a video get more hype points. Okay. Yeah, so basically what we'll do is we'll tell you guys, hey, everybody save your hype. We think this is the, we think this is the video you should spend it on this week, or you guys just spend it when you think is best. I think a YouTuber, leveraging their audience to back a video is probably what's going to happen most of the time. Hey guys, I think this video is really, really good. Let's go. This guy says, dude, please, you speak for 1% of the community that want the game to be hard. You obviously didn't watch the video. I literally say the opposite, and I like the game when it is easier. LOL. Like, you obviously didn't watch the video. I literally addressed that in the video. I'm like, I like the game when it's easy and breezy. I don't like the game to be tough. I quite literally say that in the video. I like it when it's more breezy. I just want to blow stuff up, bro. I am not at all the 1% that thinks that the game should be hard. Oh my gosh. Another thing to be asked for, please like, share, subscribe, hype, press the notification button, sacrifice a goat, buy my merch. That's right. Random or targeted audience is the question, for sure. For sure. Yeah. We just need more monetization options. I need to be able to differentiate between gifted and non-gifted. We need to be able to gift directly to people. When you gift members, you should be able to celebrate, and say, hey, here's 5 gifted. I have a question, Lono. So then you don't feel like super chatting is worthless when there's gifting. That's my opinion, right? If you're going to give the creator $5, why not do that, gift a person, get somebody else in the community, and still get to send your message, right? Like, when you have gifting, super chatting becomes a waste at that point. It's like, you might as well help grow the community and then just type out your message. I don't know why they haven't converged those two features. We have more monetization options. They're announcing them within the next 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, good. I'm excited to hear what they got. You play with your subs? We do that on Friday nights. So every Friday night, we do a stream with my wife. And when you guys hit the weekly goal, we turn it into community game night. And you guys can play games like Fall Guys with us, or Jackbox, or Fortnite. We've been defaulting to Jackbox, but we can always do something new. We have really fallen behind pace this week. This happens sometimes, but we're probably not going to hit the goal this week unless people go crazy today. Because Thursdays and Fridays, there's just no way. We typically don't have enough people going that crazy to hit it, and I prefer it to not be that way anyway. There's a part of me that's okay with when it slows down, because we really want more people picking up their own memberships anyway, because largely depending on like a handful of people going crazy every month and every week, I'm just kind of like, you know what, if we miss it, that's fine. If people miss the content, then they can, pick up the membership. If people go crazy, that's also good, because it's super generous and it helps people out. I'm good with either scenario. Thank you, Joker Quinn, for gifting a member. I'm good with either scenario. If we miss it one week and a bunch of people don't get gifteds that are accustomed to getting them, maybe they'll consider scooping up their own membership because they're like, oh, I'm missing out on the content, And then when people go crazy, MASH goes crazy, other people go crazy. I love that too, because it's super generous, Can we go? We're off the rails? Don't do that. We're not off the rails. It's been 4 minutes. Let's not do the hyperbole. Consistently though, we're getting people in the comments saying that you know, there's two sides to this discussion, is what it feels like to me. Is there are the people that are like, this is not enough, give us new content. And then there's the people that are like, this is fun, I'm excited. You know? This is fun, I'm excited. I'm glad that they did this, right? There's like two sides here. I genuinely think even the people that are having fun, they're eventually going to help. I'm sorry, they're eventually going to come over to the other side. They're eventually going to come over to the other side. You know? We're also an hour into the show, and we've said that if we wander from topic an hour in, that's fine. We don't need to go. This guy says, calling it a Band-Aid is pretty harsh. It's something that we've all been wanting and asking for, and you're going to brush it off with, yeah, it's good but not good enough kind of attitude. Didn't watch the video. I said it was good but not a long-term solution. Never said it wasn't good enough. You are shadowboxing. You're shadowboxing. I never said it wasn't good enough. I said this is good. It's not a long-term solution, though. Are you just going to buff every time you do new content? Are you just going to buff every time you add enemies or weapons or stratagems? You know? I was just asking. It's not a big deal. More playful. Yeah, but we don't need to go. We got 400 people hanging out. We're doing fine. Like if we get off topic, we've never felt like we need to leave when we get off topic. It was like 3 minutes of being off topic. It wasn't even that long. I hope Arrowhead is reading data over feedback because that will tell them ultimately what to do. Well, it's more than just... And see, that's why I think they don't want to necessarily... There's a part of me that wants it in the game. Right? I want it in the game to say, hey, we just made all these things crazy strong. They might not have wanted to do that this time around because they really just want to see, like, what's the lion's share of the community's response to this? The people that don't read the patch notes because the patch notes are insanely long, right? The people that aren't on Steam or Discord or Twitter or whatever. What are those people going to do? Like, to try to get, like, organic results, if that makes sense. Did you see the rework to the gas they did before the gas war bond? They made it confuse enemies and they started killing each other. It's great. No, I did not see that. Are you saying they did that this week, Fat Lump? Is the next war bond going to be gas oriented? Do we have a date for the next war bond? Have they even said? Because I thought they were saying they were going to try and spread the war bonds out as well. Like they were landing, you know, I told people it was too much of a good thing. I was like, you can't keep doing this. Like a new war bond every month? That's insane. I was like, you cannot do that. Super chats give people, someone who's afraid of a subscription, a way to support. Afraid of a subscription? Not 100%, but I think super chats comes before memberships and monetization, so YouTube won't can super chats. I don't think they should can them. Just let gifted members share a message. Like when someone gifts 5 members, that's $25. They should be able to put a message in chat. Tomorrow is the gas war bond. Have they officially announced it? Like with a blog like they did in the past? Oh yeah, they announced that 7 days ago. Oh, I remember looking at that. That's right. I forgot that we looked at that. Yeah, the chemical agents one. If we looked at this during a stream, this might have been during a writer's room or something. I remember looking at these pictures. Yeah. How long has it been since the last war bond? How far are they putting these apart now? Because... so this one releases September the 19th. When did, let's see. Freedom's Flame release date was August the 8th. So they haven't changed the rhythm yet. Yeah, they're still on the rhythm of a new war bond every month. Yeah, I still feel like that's got to change. Escalation of Freedom, I think. Well, it was Freedom's Flame was the last one. The fire one. Enemies are confused by the new gas mechanic and they shoot each other. That's awesome. They didn't have a war bond for the Freedom of Boredom. Freedom of Boredom. So they did skip 1 month. Is that what you're saying? Because Freedom's Flame has a war bond, and that came out 1 month ago. So they took 1 month off. Is that what they did? It's every 6 weeks. I thought they indicated they were going to reconsider how often they were doing war bonds. I thought that they had indicated that, because I remember when I said I think a new war bond every month is absolutely insane. I don't know how on earth you're gonna do anything with that. I'm sorry, maintain that. It seems like a terrible idea. Like, what are you gonna do after a year? You're gonna have 12 war bonds sitting in there. Like right now, when I boot up the thing, I played for 80 hours. I had 250 medals for me waiting, and it didn't matter. There's an ocean of stuff I still haven't unlocked, and it's like that doesn't encourage me to play. It feels hopeless. It's like, well, I'm not going to get all this stuff. New Warbond has paid stratagems for the first time too. No primary weapons or booster. Yeah, it's 2 stratagems. Sterilizer, guard dog. Well, I think the sterilizer is a weapon, but it's a weapon stratagem. So you got to drop it and pick it up, right? Then they have patterns for the drop ship, the help pod, and the exosuit. They have utilities, the gas grenade, and a stim pistol credits. And then they have, obviously, the banners, capes, poses, and then the armor sets. Oh. I wanted to upgrade to Member Plus, but I've committed the terrible sin of using the mobile app. I guess I should have start toting my desktop around. A workaround on mobile life flows is if you go incognito in your mobile browser and then you request the desktop site. That has helped some people figure it out. That has helped. When you guys upgrade to Member Plus, it counts as 2. So a lot of you could boost the weekly member goal count really quickly just by upgrading. If you upgrade to VIP, it counts as 2. If you upgrade to Member Plus, it counts as 2. Either way is super helpful. You get medals when not playing. Yeah. When I came back, I had so many waiting for me that I didn't get all of them. I hit the cap, and then a bunch of them just went in the bin, which I think is a bit lame. But I get what they're doing. This guy says, this dude seriously is Arrowhead's biggest hater. Just say you don't like playing Helldivers 2. It's not that hard. And I commented, didn't watch the video. I praised him in the first 2 minutes. Like, the defense force for Helldivers, you guys are literally part of the problem. I want you to hear that. If you've stumbled in here after you're spilling your froth-like comments on the internet defending this game to the bitter end, you're part of the problem because you quite literally attack anybody who's critical. Like, back when I said that the update wasn't enough, back when I said nerfs weren't the answer, I got the same treatment from the same mindless defense force. You're part of the problem. And this is what I want to say to people. I think you can get to a point where you're no longer a fan of the game. You're a fan of your own fiction. Like, you live in this little insulated bubble of reality, and anything that threatens that's like upsetting. You don't give a frick about the game. You don't care about the developers. Like, to you, it's a personal quest for like affirming your opinions and your value. It's like you don't even care about Helldivers. Because if you did, then you would be watching nuanced critical content and saying, hey, those are some good points, hey, those are some good ideas, but instead you're on the defense force. The minute you cross over into this defense force mentality, you're not a fan of the game. You're a fan of your own fiction. You live in some diluted state where anything that's critical of the game is like a threat to you. It's like, what in the world? It's a very fair, it's a very balanced, it's a very nuanced video. It's not even a negative thumbnail. It's like, listen, this is just a Band-Aid. This isn't a long-term fix. This has not addressed core issues of this game's longevity. It hasn't. And to think that it has, like, if it has, then why are you on the internet defending the game if it's so wonderful and so impervious to criticism? Then what in the world? You shouldn't even need to defend it then. You should just be playing it. I really do. I think people go so far in their fandom, it's like you're no longer a fan. You aren't. We've seen this in other realms. It's like instead of holding the developers or the company or the platform or whoever accountable and demanding better, you attack the people that point out the problems. And it's like, why are you attacking me? It's like, well, I'm just saying that this is a nice start, but they need to consider long term. Are you going to do this for the next 12 months? Are you literally going to do this in the next 12 months? Is this what you're going to do? You're just going to keep buffing stuff? That's not possible. We all know that's not possible. What did Liquid Smoke say that you're responding to, Eric? Two peas in the same pod. God forbid there's constructive criticism. He said, you still here? That's you, bud. It's really going to be gas. Oh, he's telling you that that's it. Oh, okay. So then Eric, your response, Eric, is that cherry picker pessimist attacking a defense force can't make it up. Who are you calling a cherry picker pessimist? Are you talking to Liquid Smoke or are you talking about me? I don't feel like I was cherry picking. I was big picture. I was like, this is great, but long term, I don't see how this is sustainable. You've got to figure out a philosophy of rhythm here. I just don't get why people kept saying the game was dead just because it's not keeping high player numbers. For me, dead means like Concord or Anthem. I don't know, he's attacking me, real mean dude. You've got to be kidding around. You're buddies or something. I don't know why people said it was dead. I mean, the numbers certainly got pretty low. They got pretty low, bro. I was pointing out why players dropped off and why I stopped playing, and it's not constructive criticism. Digital Foundry has said that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has a night and day improvement to image quality over the base PS5 and an all-important 60 FPS performance mode. That's exciting. Maybe that'll affect Final Fantasy 16. Maybe. No, I don't know the guy. He can't be serious calling you a real mean dude. Yeah, you could say that we're buddies slightly more, in my opinion. Liquid's saying he doesn't know you. What in the heck? He's a real mean dude, man. He's out here being really unkind. It's because it's not a Band-Aid. It's what the players have been asking for the devs for months now. Not every problem is solved by this, but it's a good start. Agreed. A good first step. I want to know the long-term plan now. The patch has been great so far. This is just a start. Why are you saying it's a Band-Aid? Let's be positive. The video is positive. It's a good start, but not a long-term solution. Hence why I'm calling it a Band-Aid! I'm calling it a Band-Aid because it literally is not a long-term solution. That seems fair. That seems fair. All right. All right. It's 11:30. I tell you what. Let's do it. This is the last time I'm throwing down this gauntlet, and then after that, I don't know. If we don't hit 200 today, I might not even put the goal up on Thursday and Friday. I'm not going to put a damper on the week. We'll throw in the towel on the goal, and we'll be like, we're not doing it. We're just going to hang out on Friday night. But this is your chance, chat. If it hits 200, I'll do a 50 bomb, and we do this during members Q&A, right? So right now, if you are a member, you can submit a question. You type !question, then just put a space and type your question. Don't attach anything to the word question. You just put !question and then put a space, okay? That's how you submit a question, and then I'll have it pop up here. These questions might turn into videos. We're trying to consider just another way of making more content, right? And if you ask questions right now, it can be about anything going on in the gaming world. So if you've just been hanging out and having a good time and you're not really a big Helldivers fan, or you haven't really been playing Helldivers, well, now's a great time for you to ask me about something else that might be going on in the gaming world, and maybe it turns into a video. Now's also a great time to gift members or become a member, because then you get to take part in the Q&A. Remember, if you decide to click join and become a member all on your own, you want to pick Member Plus or VIP. The standard $5 membership is largely reserved for gifting. It's basically a sampling of most of the content that we do extra for members. Let me see something here. What are your thoughts about Colin's opinion on toxic content on YouTube? Colin Moriarty and we're like two sides of the same coin. Like, I watched an episode, and like he even jokes in a way that I joke sometimes. Like, he was talking about getting annoyed with how people eat, you know, and he like yelled. He was like, "Learn to eat." And it's like, I kind of joke in a similar way. I don't know if we're from similar parts of the country. Like, he kind of reminds me of like the northern style of comedy and like irreverence and just blunt honesty. And so everything he said, I have said very similar things. That there's a whole thread of content on YouTube that's not about a thing. It's not about a topic. It's about people. It's about making fun of people, mocking them, you know, and small minds talk about people, right? You know, what it was like, medium minds talk about events, and big minds talk about ideas. He's from Long Island. There you go. Makes perfectly good sense. I'm from Northern Ohio. So we're cut from the same cloth. We're from the northern part of America. We joke in similar ways. We think in similar ways. I would absolutely love to be on an episode of Sacred Symbols. I think the entire time we would basically just be like, you know, are we twins, bro? Like, so like when he went on that rant, and I tweeted about it. Here's the main issue with that type of content. You have to do ! Question, Hadigan. You can't put a space in between the ! And the question. Yeah, I've had a lot of people even come to me and tell me, Scott, they're like, you remind me of Colin Moriarty. I've had people tell me that, and I was like, I didn't know who they were talking about. So I'm a fairly new fan of his, just in recent years, and we have similar backgrounds of like getting quote unquote canceled for just nonsense. So I completely agree with him, but I go a step further and I say that content well always runs dry, because eventually the audience wants more. It's sort of like, you know, Thunder. It's sort of like the Gladiators and violence, and how you always are going to have to raise it. You're always going to have to make it more intense, more scathing, more unkind. And so typically these YouTubers tend to implode because they either go so far that they break the rules, or they realize that they've made something that's unsustainable. Because that's just personally what I think. Like, from a business perspective, as somebody who has been creating content, I've been creating content, streaming, and doing YouTube for literally a decade, and I don't think it's a good plan or a strategy. I don't think it's a good plan or a strategy. I don't. because I don't think you're fostering anything. You're not creating something. You're simply tearing other people down. And I think that works for a while. I do. But like, I feel like what we do here is we foster community. And if people are like, oh, but you hate Xbox, you hate Xbox. Listen, if me being critical of a company in your mind is equal to like salt farm hate content that calls me and other people names and makes fun of us, if you see those things as equal, we're not even on the same wavelength of humanity if you think those things are equal. Right? Like, me being critical of Xbox, me being against the Activision Blizzard merger, if you think that's equal to people calling me retard gaming, like if you think those things are equal, we're not even on the same wavelength of humanity. You don't see reality the way that it exists. They're not the same. I've never made my content about criticizing people or calling people names or attacking people. Now, sure, I have my passionate debates with people in the chat, and I might call somebody like a dum-dum or something, but like the centerpiece of the content is about gaming. It's about games. It's about what I like, what I don't like, what I hope happens, why I like this thing over that thing, why I was disappointed in this game, and why I thought this game was amazing. That to me is far more interesting, and it fosters community, because it's like, even if you disagree with me, having a conversation about whether or not Black Myth Wukong runs well, or whether or not the PlayStation 5 Pro is worth it, that to me is interesting and fun. Yelling and screaming and calling people names and making fun of them and basically, you know, making content that's all centered around tearing others down, I don't think that that's enjoyable. I think that's consumed and made by people that are unhappy. I think what comes out of a man is what defiles him, not what goes into him. Like, I think people are always betraying what's on the inside when they make content like that. And so that's why I don't react to it. I don't address it. I don't watch it. I don't acknowledge their existence. I'm like, you're on a wavelength I think that's unhealthy. I'm over here. I'm over here. And if you want to continue to attack me, swing at me, and make content about me, that's your choice. That's your path in life. I'm not going to engage with it. I'm just not. I have deemed it unworthy of my time. You know, I'd rather be watching videos about how to coach my kid's soccer team than watch that drivel. I just would. I would rather fill my head and my brain and my heart with good things, and not nasty negative things, because it's not showmanship. It's not just for entertainment purposes. It's unkind content. And if someone wants to live their life that way, that's their choice. I'm not going to try and tell people how to live their life. I'm not. So I 100% agreed with Colin Moriarty's take, though, that most of these people that do this, they're not even fans of gaming. They're not. They enjoy making fun of somebody being excited about something. That right there is all you need to know about their mental state. Like, making fun of people who are excited about something. Like, that's what they do a lot of the times. So, a question from Lone Wolf. What are your thoughts on the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster that was rated? Like, obviously, it's going to get a lot of the same response that we see all of the time from people who don't like PlayStation, but also there are PlayStation fans who are sick of remasters and remakes. My take on it is very simple. We know Guerrilla is working on a ton of stuff. This was likely a small team. This is not some dichotomous decision where it's like, instead of having Guerrilla work on something new, they were working on this. This isn't taking away from you. It's merely offering something extra for the people that want it. I was able to play The Last of Us Part 2 remaster at next-gen fidelity, and I'm thrilled that they made it. Okay, and people that already owned The Last of Us Part 2 got to buy the next-gen remaster for $10. This will likely be treated the same way. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad. It's not something that they shouldn't be doing. Like, it's just going to be there as an option for you if you want to upgrade for the 10, or for people that have never played it. I'm telling you, this decision to do a remaster of Horizon Zero Dawn, it supports my claim at the beginning of this generation. I said, we are not going to see enormous fidelity jumps in the future of this gen. We're not. You're not going to get to the second half of the PlayStation 5 and say, oh my gosh, this brand new game makes Horizon Forbidden West look like a joke. It's not going to happen. Now, recently on Sacred Symbols and on Digital Foundry, they said similar things. Richard Ledbetter said he's kind of hoping we get to a point where people just accept that this is a good range of performance. 4K 60 ray tracing is good for like a long time. You don't need to push everything into insane levels of lighting and photorealism. Like, you can only get so photorealistic. You can only make the lighting and the shadows look so good before it's like you're wasting resources on that. We should start looking for better innovation in the games themselves. What's the game gonna offer me? Like, Astrobot doesn't have ray tracing. Astrobot is not some insane next-gen tour de force, and it's a blast, right? So if we start getting games that are in this hemisphere of 4K 60 ray tracing, but then the game is really fun, that's what I'm looking for. Now, how does this relate to Horizon Zero Dawn Remaster? As far as I can tell, PlayStation agrees with what I'm saying. They know that this gen, there isn't going to be a huge move in graphical fidelity, so they're going to raise all of their best property up to that level of fidelity. They've done it with The Last of Us. They're doing it with Horizon. Then what they're going to do is they're going to utilize PSSR technology to build a bridge between PlayStation 5 Pro and the PlayStation 6. There will be, for the first time ever, very measurable cartilage between the generations. So you will have developers, you will have first-party studios leveraging PSSR, leveraging the ray tracing and the stronger graphics card, and raising these games up and making them even better, and then they will run even better on the PlayStation 6, creating a more holistic ecosystem of games that are at a level of graphics, fidelity, and performance that the market expects from games. What they're doing is they're creating transcendence for games that deserve it. These games are from a really, really long time ago. These games are from, what feels like an age ago. They're the previous gen, and yet they're going to be running at same fidelity and performances. Like, look at Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores. What a triumph of video game creativity. That boss fight at the end, the fidelity, the lighting, the graphics, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And to suddenly have Zero Dawn, which in some ways I think Zero Dawn's story is superior, to have that game suddenly at that fidelity, that's a win for gamers. That's a win for fans of Horizon. It's a win for PlayStation. Why? They know, let me let you in on a little secret. PlayStation knows they're on the precipice of getting more and more brand new users. And do you want to know something? Having this amazing backlog of games and remasters like Horizon and The Last of Us, that's good for them. Can you imagine jumping in right now? You're going to have to resubmit your question, Broken Lobo. Can you imagine jumping into PlayStation right now with the PlayStation 5? The amount of games you can get that are at very, very good fidelity and performance, that instead of being like, well, I really would love to play Horizon, but it does kind of look dated compared to Forbidden West. Or, man, I'd really love to play The Last of Us Part 1, but it doesn't look like a next-gen game. Well, it does now. PlayStation's making a very smart move, in my personal opinion, because they're spending what would amount to, I believe, a pretty small amount of bandwidth to have an entire library of first-party studio games at next-gen fidelity. That's a really, really strong foundation going forward, because I don't think The Last of Us Part 3 or God of War on PlayStation 6 or Horizon 3, those games are not going to look that much different than what we're getting right now, and that's okay. It's not about, well, we better get 120 8K and I better be able to see ray tracing on the beads of sweat on the back of Kratos' bald head. No, I don't need that. You give me 64K ray tracing, I am fine. Build a good game. Build a good game. Performance and graphics don't make for a good game. They certainly are a catalyst to enjoying it, but they're not what determines the quality of the game. They can certainly be a diminishment of the quality of the game, but once you're at 4K ray tracing 60, that's it. Don't spend any more resources on that kind of stuff. Give me a good game with great innovation, new mechanics, new ideas, leverage the hardware in better ways, and give me a good experience. That's why Horizon Zero Dawn getting remastered doesn't bother me at all. I'm sure that'll be described as being a pony shill, but I don't give a frick. Question from Gaming for Days. Why is the lollipop game being avoided by the media when games like it are making a comeback? I'm not quite sure why you're saying it's being avoided by the game's media. I saw a bunch of outlets tweeting about it, so I'm not sure what you mean. I don't know if there's tangible evidence it's being avoided, by the media. Hang on one second before I read the next question. Next question comes from... Oh, I already read that. You submitted that one twice. Hadigan says, would crossover IP drive engagement? Imagine 1 week we see a Resistance crossover. This could feed Sony data about the interests of other IPs as well. I believe that you're asking about maybe like crossover into Helldivers 2. I personally don't think that suddenly turning a game like Helldivers into like this... let's just throw a bunch of games inside of it or a bunch of game references inside of it. I don't think that's a good idea. When they started doing that in Destiny, I think what it does is it turns your game into like chintzy, cheap slop. It's like, does your game have an identity and a lore and a feel and a vibe? Does it? Well, then why would you dilute that by bringing other property into it? Like all the different skins and stuff that you could get in Destiny, what was like Witcher and Mass Effect and all this stuff, I don't like it. I feel like it looks weird. Crossover events and live service games are a lot of fun. I'm not arguing about the funness of them. I'm arguing about what it does to the identity of the game. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't. So, that's my personal take. I mean, you can be in support of it, but I don't want to boot up Helldivers 2 one day and be wearing something from another, I don't want to be wearing something from another game. Yo, what's good, J Balance? You sent me a DM in Discord. No, you did not. You're going to have to resend the message, Jay. You sent me a friend request. We're now friends, but I don't have a message from you. I mean, I think you waved at me. Fawn said you were trying to get in touch with me. To be fair, Destiny's lore was barely coherent, as is with needed lore turn to make sense of it. Yeah, but the lore was coherent if you actually looked into it. If you read the books or the cards. Destiny's lore was actually pretty friggin' awesome. I can't even play Destiny, okay? I've not been able to play for 3 years. Here's the deal. Their lore and their characters and their story is awesome. Why would you sully that with skins from other games? It's just weird. I think it's breaking the fourth wall in the worst way possible. You're breaking the fourth wall in the worst way possible. It didn't add anything of value to the game. It was a way to make a buck. It was a way to make a buck. I don't suddenly want to have Ghosts of Tsushima skins in Helldivers 2. I don't want that. I don't. I think... Why is it having an error connecting to the remote server all of a sudden? Can anybody else submit... Hang on, let me check something. Yeah, I don't think we've hit a limit on the question form. No, yeah, question form is good. How do I question properly? I don't know. Oh, I think it's because you have emojis in your name, Broken Lobo. Somebody's going to have to submit your question for you. Nightbot doesn't know how to interact with the emojis in your name. If there are unique icons or symbols in your name, it breaks Nightbot. Nightbot can't put you into the spreadsheet. Because Nightbot literally grabs your question from YouTube chat and puts it in a spreadsheet for me. That's what it is. A question from Zinthos. Do you think there's any sliver of a chance that Marathon shows up at PlayStation Tokyo Game Show? I know you believe it's canceled, but it's supposed to release next year. I mean... I honestly don't know what to say about that game. Didn't Iron Banner have a samurai set? Yeah, that's different though. It's not a direct thing from another game. There you go. Ala Park took care of you, Lobo. Yeah, I don't know what to think of Marathon anymore. I really don't. I think it should be canceled. I still think deep down they've already done something to it. You know, canceled it or folded it into Destiny. You know, I don't know. And then all of a sudden the leaks come out, and the leaks feel like Cope. The leaks feel like Defense Force. The leaks don't feel genuine. I just don't know. To me, there's nothing about the game that I see being successful. I'm just so not confident in it. And then when they come out and another part of the leaks are like, it's going to be $40, like Helldivers and Concord, I'm like, what the frick are y'all doing? Everybody said I was a naysayer about Concord. Okay. I'm open to being wrong, but I'm telling you, Marathon is a non-starter, boys. It's a non-starter. I'm standing on that. I'm standing by my opinion on that one. What do you think of the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster? I already answered this earlier. If you want to go back and watch it, it was the very first question. Aloe Park submitted Broken Lobo's question for him. Does PSSR change the way we look at AI game dev? AI generally has a bad rap. Well, yes. And this is actually a really good question. AI in game dev replacing handcrafted, replacing real voice actors, replacing real writing, real scripts, that can dilute your quality and your value very quickly. Now, I'm not going to get sanctimonious and self-righteous about a small studio using AI for voice actors to save money, okay? Budgets get tight for indie and AA studios, okay? I will say every single voice actor has a right to protect their voice being replicated and not being paid. There's two things at play here. Using AI when you're on a smaller budget and you're a smaller team and you can use an AI to do voice acting and save a bundle because of how much it would cost to hire voice actors and spend time recording and spend time editing and processing all of their lines. Like, you're going to save all that money. That's fine. But I'm not saying, oh no, but then it's totally okay to use Christopher Judge's voice without his permission and without compensating him. They have every right to protect their talent, their voice, their likeness, and the rest. They have a right to that. Okay. That'll all get worked out in contracts. AI in the realm of PSSR and upscaling is a completely different category of utilizing machine learning. Machine learning and AI being utilized for upscaling, for giving you better performance, that to me is in a whole nother category. It doesn't necessarily change the bad reputation that AI has right now in certain pockets and facets of game development. But what it does do is, this is something that comes in after the fact and says, hey, we can make your game look and run a little bit better. We can smooth over those rough edges. You could lower that internal resolution a little bit, get a little bit more headroom in your processing power, spend a little less resources, we'll shoulder that burden, we'll upscale, and now your game's going to run more smoothly. Right? You can throw in a little bit more of that ray tracing if you want. This is going to help. This is going to give you more headroom. That to me is different than using AI to generate an entire planet or script or voice lines, and then you end up feeling like the game has like this very bland, inauthentic, non-organic, just kind of slop. But again, it depends on the game. Like, if I were to play a game from an indie studio and the platform and mechanics were stellar and the experience was great and it was super creative, but the voice lines were obviously delivered by AI, I'm not going to take a bunch of points off for that. I'm not. But if Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and it's obvious they're using AI for voices and it really dilutes the feel and the tone, you want that game to feel like there's substance to it and that it's real, right? Hey, you're awake, right? We want those moments. We want those memorable moments. And if a game like Elder Scrolls uses AI and every NPC I go to ends up feeling like a flat, fence post that just is there to say things like an animatronic at Disneyland, well, that's when you start to say, hey, wait a minute. You're a pretty big company. You got a pretty big budget. You guys should have invested here. I'll tell you something. I played Starfield for the first time in a long time last night, and that was the first thing that stood out to me. That was the first thing that stood out to me, was the voice acting. I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. I remember thinking that back when I played, but I had forgotten. Now, I'm playing on the Series X, I'm playing performance mode, and the main hub, the main city, is still not great. It's still rough. I'm anxious to see what it feels like in combat. We're going to probably have to grind that Thursday and Friday this week to get ready for the Shattered Space DLC. So that's a great reason to be Member Plus and above. Green Room gets to see me play games. So, yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing that I thought really, really made, really stands out in Starfield. Brody, oh, I didn't mean to skip your question. I'm sorry, Brody. Let me scroll back up here. Brody says, how's it going with your brand, and do you have a plan for change or new content you're thinking about you want to share with us? I mean, I appreciate the question. Everything seems to be going really, really well. I was saying just this morning that, we have a very reliable turnout now. Today was a little on the lighter side, but I think something was going on with YouTube because our upload started out terribly and all of a sudden it started going up, which is kind of weird. And then the live stream kind of suffered from that because typically if the upload does well, it dumps everybody here and gives us a strong start. Well, the upload started out so poorly. I was like, what's going on? Where is everybody? And it didn't dump as many people over here. So this is probably one of the weaker live streams we've done in a long time. And yet it's still really good. Even our low turnout live streams are performing very well for how large our channel is. In the realm of is there new content that I want to make? I'm continuing to iterate. I've got ideas sketched out. I've taken a lot of inspiration from, some of the earliest genius storytellers of our day, Rod Serling with Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock. I love their stuff. And I've been working our way through Alfred Hitchcock Presents with my wife, and I've jotted down some ideas on could I start to do videos that feel more like a transcendent evergreen story about what happened as opposed to more of news mixed with opinion. Right now we're kind of news mixed with opinion, and it is structured in sort of a storytelling way, but I want to start to continue to evolve that. I want to evolve what the content feels like, because I feel like not only is it a good idea for a video to have more legs 6 months from now, so I think from a business strategy it's good to make your content have more transcendence, but also just as a creator, I'm always pushing myself. I always want the content to be better. I always want the value to be going up. It's I want to turn around in 6 months and say, man, the way I do videos is so different now and it's so much better than it used to be. I feel like that right now. If you look at my uploads September last year, right? September of 2023 to now, the quality has gone up significantly, both because we're utilizing the editing skills of my producer, editor, business strategist. He wears 18 different hats. We're utilizing his skills. We're putting more effort into the content, but also because I'm just thinking differently about how I structure thought and video and everything else. So I've always enjoyed your content and how you built your brand. Been here. I know you've been here for a very, very long time, Brody. Thank you. I love the news opinion build that you've got going. It's been cool to see you grow. Well, I appreciate that. I do. Those of you that have been along the ride the entire time and you enjoyed the content and you support those uploads, I greatly appreciate that. I really, really do. I had to step into an environment that was I was really unfamiliar with, which is, making high effort, well-written, thoughtful upload content. What I used to do is I would just sort of give myself a generic outline and go, and then do Q&A, and all of that ended up on YouTube, and none of it was structured in the way that we structure content now. That was back in the day when I primarily just streamed and covered Destiny. So Deity Anubis says, are you going to be playing Silent Hill coming up? Yes, we will probably play that day one. Typically, the way we handle gameplay is I play it day one, show it to you guys. It's good for me. It's good for you. What I typically don't do is I don't do, here's part 9 of me playing this game. We just don't do that. That's not what this channel is built around. This channel is built around opinion, gaming news discussion. That's in the form of upload and talk show. And then we also cover live events when they happen. We co-stream game awards and stuff like that. And then we also play a brand new game when it comes out. But what we don't do is we don't dig in on a game and play like, I didn't do that with Astrobot and I'm loving the game. But it wasn't like, yeah, guys, here's part 7 of me playing through Astrobot. Now, maybe in the future, if YouTube makes some good changes and I can spin up a channel, it's already monetized, it's already partnered, and I can make sure that your membership transfers so that when you go over there, you're still a member, we might be able to have a channel like that one day in the future. I just didn't like streaming on another channel because some longtime supporter with a red badge or a green badge would come over and they'd be like, I don't have a badge. I didn't like that. And then we had people double dipping and picking up memberships on different channels. I did not like the way that felt. I didn't like my most ardent supporters feeling like they were having to pay twice. I didn't like that. I'd rather plant the flag on one channel, and have people investing in either gifting or upgrading their own membership. And then if one day we can do that, we will. But right now we don't really have room for like a Let's Play channel where you get to see my entire playthrough of a game. That just isn't in the cards. I'm not a Twitch streamer anymore. Krem is asking a question in chat. He says, new viewer, so sorry if this has been answered. What are your thoughts on the solution to long-term game progression? Yeah, if you're asking about my thoughts on long-term game progression in Helldivers 2, I think they've got to figure out content, rhythm, and philosophy of power first before they tackle that. I think that's a more difficult thing to tackle, and I think the foundation of the game needs to be addressed first. You have to figure out how you're rhythmically adding stratagems, weapons, enemies, and content. You have to figure out how you're rhythmically handling the power fantasy of the player with respect to buffs and nerfs, which I've outlined a handful of solutions that I think would give them an ongoing rhythmic way to keep the game fresh without frustrating the player base. I think once you trot out those solutions, then you can focus on long-term progression. Whether or not you do things with factions or leveling up certain things so you can unlock cosmetics. I don't think that you legislate the game to the hardcore player, though, who's like, I don't have anything to do. Typically, the only way to legislate to those players is to make it incredibly grindy and slow, which they end up liking because there's always something to work on, and then everybody else hates it. So, all right, last question before we go to Writer's Room. I'm just going to take the goal down. I'm officially calling a break on the goal. We're not going for it this week. Butters submits a question. Sony has no IP. They know remasters are a good idea. Why not remaster dead IPs like Resistance, Infamous, and the like? Saying Sony has no IP is inaccurate and disingenuous. The comment that was made about how they don't have enough original IP was made with respect to movies, anime, and video games. It was not specifically made with reference to video games. I actually think Sony has a very good batch of first-party IP, and going back and remastering or remaking dead IPs, I'll tell you one of the reasons they're not doing it, because nobody cares about those games. If that hurts your fee-fees, I'm sorry. Nobody cares about those games. The reason they're doing a remaster of Horizon is because Horizon's one of their biggest pieces and most successful pieces of property. Nobody gives a frick about Resistance or Infamous. I hate to say it, they don't. They don't. It's like when people say, could we get a remake or a remaster of Banjo, Kazooie, or Spyro, or... Listen. I love that people love those games. Those are non-starters, bro. No one cares about those games anymore. I'm serious. They don't. They don't care. Nobody would care if they did that. People don't care about Jak and Daxter and Infamous? No. They don't. If people cared about those games, listen, if I'm wrong and there's market research to indicate there's demand for those games, then you'll see them come to the market in some facet. They're not here because nobody wants them. I've got news for you. That's the problem. I think people keep forgetting that we're in a generation of gamers now who would be like, Killzone what? Jack and who? I think Killzone would sell like hotcakes if it came back. No. I don't think so. Listen, there's a reason that PlayStation has invested virtually no money into games like that. Do you want to know why? A significant portion of their community only plays Call of Duty, and they're all still hanging out on PS4. That's the facts, Jack. That's why they're not doing it. They know. They're like, what a waste of time that would be. What a waste of time that would be. A game that would appeal to shooters and like shooter fans of shooters. Most of their people that would be potentially going to buying a game like Killzone or something, they're all hanging out in Call of Duty Warzone on PS4. They are. Now, everybody else, the 60 million that have purchased a PS5, and the people that are in the new funnel, and they're not hanging out on PS4 and they're not hanging out in Warzone, they're buying games like Horizon and Spider-Man. If Astro doesn't light the fire, nothing will. I think Astro is going to do very well for what it is, but I also don't think Astro is going to be, a Spider-Man 2 or a Horizon or a God of War. It's not going to sell like that. It's not meant to sell like that. It just isn't. You also have to remember, you would need a team that wants to make it. How many developers right now do you think are like just jonesing to do a remake of Jak and Daxter? How many people are just jonesing to make another Killzone? You have to remember that a lot of these developers have wanted to move on to different games. Like when Guerrilla decided to go do Horizon, that was a huge risk. They weren't sure if that wasn't, they thought that was going to blow up in their face. A lot of the developers have just moved on. They're like, we don't want to make another shooter. There's so many shooters in the market. We don't want to go back and remake Banjo-Kazooie. We don't want to go back and make Jak and Daxter. What are you talking about? And if I'm not even saying they're not worth making. I'm sure this gets clipped, and I'm accused of not being a gamer because I'm insulting sacred treasures. But listen to me now. I'm telling you, nobody wants those games. They don't. The people that do are hanging out here and talking on Reddit, and you're the minority. The vast majority of consumers would take one look at a game like that and be like, I'm good, bro. I'm good. There's plenty of shooters out there already. Girl Troll says, it's more so we don't have those games because those studios wanted to do something new and create new IPs. Killzone to Horizon, Jak and Daxter to Tlu, Infamous to Ghost of Tsushima. Beat me to it. Exactly. No, that's more meat on the bones, Trill, and that's well stated. Like, the devs don't want to do it. That's the other aspect of this. Give Killzone to the Concord guys or Bungie. You're assuming that they would want to build it. Guerrilla can license out their game. Sure, they can. But then PlayStation's leadership, Herman Hulst, would have to see grounds in the market to bring a shooter to the market. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to. Hey, you guys want a Killzone? And a bunch of the Warzone guys would be like, no. No. Or they would buy it and quickly put it back down and go back to Warzone. I got to schedule Writer's Room, and we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. Let's see. All right, last question. Let me pop it up. Alapark, do you really think that the early success Astro bought with a relatively small team might breathe some life into other IPs, though? No. No, I don't think so. You see, I think the dilemma that you guys have here is there has to be impetus. I don't think there is impetus to go back and bring out old games or remakes or remasters. They're doing it with Horizon because Horizon's an enormous piece of property, and they want all of their flagship titles at next-gen fidelity and performance. Horizon's not Jak and Daxter. Horizon's not Killzone. Horizon has a next-gen, super impressive sequel on PlayStation 5 right now, and Burning Shores isn't even cross-gen. Do you see? Like, there's a bridge to get there. It's like you can make sense of why they're doing Horizon Zero Dawn, but like to go back and do Killzone or Infamous or Jak and Daxter, there's no impetus to do it. There's no market for those games right now. People be like, I don't know who the frick Jak and Daxter is. I agree about Jak and Daxter, Banjo, and Killzone, but not Infamous. I think a new Infamous would be well received. Okay, now we're saying different things, Val, and I agree with you. A new Infamous would be well received. It's in the lane of the type of games that do well on PlayStation, and it would be new. I don't think a remake or a remaster would be worth it, because people would be like, what is this? I don't know what that is, but a new Infamous would do totally fine. I don't think a new Jak and Daxter or a new Banjo or a new Killzone would do well. A new Infamous would do fine, because it would fit into the lane of the third-person action-adventure games that do incredibly well on PlayStation. Astro has the benefit of being a love letter to every PlayStation game. You take that away, and I doubt everyone will be buying it for the platforming only. I think primarily in the early commercials and stuff, people were primarily getting excited because it looked like a really fun platformer like Mario Galaxy. I don't think the nostalgia was the primary selling point. I believe it was additive. I don't think it's the primary driver. So, all right, I'm going to spam a link in chat. Guys, take a quick second and smash the like button. Let's try to get 300 likes on the video. And if you can't come to Writer's Room because you don't have a membership, I'm putting a stop to the member goal this week. I'm telling people to pump the brakes. If you want a membership right now, you're gonna have to pick up your own. Then the best advice I can give you is pick Member Plus. It's $6 instead of $5, and you get into all of the content. We do extra content, green room. I play games. There's all this extra added stuff. The $5 is purely reserved for gifting, and you get into most, but not all. So if you want to come with us to things like Writer's Room, that's what you're gonna have to do. A link in chat will get you there. That's where we're headed. I'm also going to use redirect. Hey, thanks so much for being a member. And if you have recently upgraded to Member Plus and VIP, thank you so much for doing that. And if this is now hitting your homepage in your feed, YouTube has made some changes. So the members-only content should be hitting your feeds, your homepages, and your subscriber pages and tabs. It should be doing that more often. So we are coming off of a Helldivers day. We were talking Helldivers. We did some Q&A. I'm going to end that stream and bring everybody over with redirect, and then I'm going to change the thumbnail so it no